In my world, 1 plus 1 adds up to 2. When you give me something that looks like 1 plus 1 adds up to 3, bells begin ringing in my head. So when you see that an individual who has never featured anywhere in the history of this country in terms of being somebody who has got money, wakes up and claims that she has imported fuel worth 17 billion. Now, 17 billion is money even most counties don't see. The only county that has ever seen that kind of money is Nairobi County, when at one time it was given 18 billion. My own county in Busia gets about 8 billion. Some counties like Vihiga get about 4 billion. You see? So an individual is coming to give you figures that are associated with the government or with multinational companies. Then you begin asking questions. How does this, what is happening? Am I really, another kusugua meno macho hivi ukiangalia TV, things is not, this 1 plus 1 here is not adding up to 2. So I said, okay, this kind of money can only be found in government. So we are looking at the Ministry of Petroleum. So the most natural thing I did was to go and to the Treasury, to the website of Treasury, download the budget for the petroleum, Ministry of Petroleum and Mining. It is given a different name in nowadays, but in the books, the Treasury books is Petroleum and Mining. So I downloaded them, and I began looking through the allocations. First of all, I noticed it was given a very small budget, not even 17 billion. It was given a budget of about 5 billion and something, of which 5.2 billion was to be financed from its own operations, and then 723 million, 723 million, not even a billion, was to come from the consolidated fund. Then there's something that is always published every year. That's what Parliament approved for the year 2022-2023 as the budget for the Ministry of Petroleum and Mining. So even using the 17 billion, is 14 billion plus more than what we have allocated this ministry. So now, after looking at the budget and establishing that, I now went to every end of month, the Minister for Finance is supposed to gazette the actuals of revenue, a statement to gazette on actuals of revenue and the net expenditure. Now, when I went to that statement, I began looking at them, I began saying, Allah, these fellows are not even following the budget they were given by Parliament. They are eating with a big spoon. They are spending money, they are getting money from the consolidated fund without the authority of Parliament. And remember, under the law, Parliament must approve the budget the way they did. Then the controller of budget must supervise how that budget is utilized. But here are people just coming and taking money. So I noticed under Ukuri Atan published that they had taken out some 16 billion. Then again, Professor Njuguna declared in a statement that was published, that was gazetted, that the ministry had spent 9 billion. That's 16 plus 9. Then, in June, we are getting that they have spent, at the close of the year, they are just ending. They had withdrawn 17 billion. Now, the 16 billion withdrawn in September by was declared by Ukuru, and then the 9 billion that was done in April, that was declared by Professor Njuguna, I'm not able to know where it went. But the 17 billion caught my eye because of it is matching with the other works. The period when it was taken out, June, and the time, the transactions and the fuel coming in and stuff. So I looked at this thing and I saw that this is where you are. Then now, as I was looking at us for tracing that money, first of all, they were given 5 billion. They have spent about 40-something billion. Then you begin to ask, what the heck is going on? Yeah? So I now looked at how have they covered their tracks with this money. So I go and look at the consolidated fund. Remember, in the 5 billion, they were supposed to spend about 5 billion from their own operations, and some about 700 from elsewhere, because they're given about 5 billion point something. Now, I've already seen that they have not spent the 700 and whatever million. They have spent about 43 billion. Okay? Now, I began looking at how did they then cover these tracks. Then I go and begin looking at the supplementary budget. Then I get the shock of my life. They declare that in the supplementary budget are now claiming that Parliament approved 20 billion shillings. Remember, the budget is there. It is only 5 billion. But in the supplementary budget, as they make a supplementary budget, they say, we were given 20 billion shillings, but we want to add on. So they add on now the 43 about, the 43, plus 20 billion. Now in the supplementary budget, now they now claim 63 billion, which now Parliament MPs in their nonsensical mind, because I'll call it nonsensical because they should have noticed this, they just approved. So the fraud is covered, it becomes saying now the Parliament approved. So you have got 63 billion shillings that's taken from the taxpayer, and they have disappeared. And now by claiming that they were given 20 billion in the 2022-2023 budget, they again have stolen about 14 billion because they're only given 5 billion. You see, 5 billion plus something. So they steal about 15 billion plus something just by playing around with that figure. So the question is that the National Assembly needs to tell us, because they never bring this budget to the Senate. They are Catalan National Assembly with the support of the executive. They need to tell us why they are not doing their work. How did they approve a supplementary budget that was totally false? They had approved 5 billion. They don't remember they approved 5 billion. They come and approve a supplementary budget saying that we, the National Assembly, approved 20 billion. You see, the people, they should just abolish this guy in this house. That's just a rubber stamp. So that's how I got around, and now I was able to pin together and show that the 17 billion money which this woman claims, which she has no evidence that she can have that kind of money, was taken from the public coffers, and this woman was the mule, because they don't want to betray somebody. So this was the mule that was supposed to cut this money away. A company, Galana, would not want to be directly involved in that money, because it will be trust to them. So we want to give it to some nondescript fellow to transact it, so it is taken out, and it pays the money, it's paid out there for the money, for the fuel. So now when the fuel comes in, the money will be cleaned up. Then it goes to Galana, and they take their proceeds. Galana sells the oil for them, and they take their proceeds. But should anybody trace it, the culprit is this woman. So the woman is a mule. She doesn't own anything. She doesn't own that oil. And that's why they're saying that they were financing some private, subsidizing private enterprises. So they need to come clean and tell us which are these private enterprises. They have subsidized to the tune of 63 billion. So this money must have gone through other purchases. This one, we have only learned of it because maybe the deal they made with this woman was, we know there's no honor among thieves, was backfiring. So the woman screamed. That's how some of us then said, okay, let us look at this. But the money is 63 billion, not 17 billion. So the Minister for Energy needs to come out and tell us where the 63 billion shillings went. 17, we can see it went to the oil. The remaining, we need to be told. The Minister for Finance needs to tell us why they approved those expenditures. And the Control of Budget, why she signed off for this money to be taken out of the consolidated fund. Because the procedure is very simple. Once money is in the consolidated fund, you need an appropriation act. The appropriation act is the budget, which has got revenue and expenditure. Although the last appropriation act is challenged, you only had expenditure. So anyway, they should then tell us, the controller budget should tell us, what document did she use to approve the 63 million to be taken out when Parliament approved only 5 billion for this ministry. Okay?
Now, the question, because